The renovation crew had been upgrading Washington High School's old boiler room for 3 days when they discovered a sealed storage area behind a false wall. It was September 15th, 2025, and 43-year-old contractor James Mitchell broke through the drywall to find a small space that wasn't on any blueprint. Inside, on the dust-covered concrete floor, lay a human skeleton still wearing a faded purple cheerleader uniform, a backpack scattered nearby with 2006 dated textbooks spilling out. Within hours, DNA would confirm what the small Iowa town of Cedar Rapids had feared for 19 years. They'd finally found Melissa Turner, the beloved 16-year-old high school student who vanished while studying in the library on October 12, 2006. Her library table had been left with homework half finished, her phone still charging, her friends waiting outside, as if she'd simply stepped away for a moment. The truth was far darker. She'd been murdered and sealed in a storage room by someone who worked alongside her every day, someone students trusted, someone who'd continued working at the school using her memory. For 19 years, students had attended classes just floors away, graduated, moved on with their lives, never knowing their beloved classmate's body lay hidden behind the walls of their school. James Mitchell was a 43-year-old experienced contractor who had been doing commercial building repairs and renovations throughout Iowa State for 18 years. He had worked on dozens of schools, community centers, and public buildings across the region. Washington High School wanted to modernize its aging building constructed in 1985. The school had been operating successfully for 40 years and needed significant upgrades to accommodate increasing student numbers and modern educational requirements. James and his four-person crew started work on September 12, 2025, expecting a straightforward 4-week renovation project. On the afternoon of September 15th, they were carefully removing the wall behind the old boiler room. The plan was to create a larger storage area for old equipment, unused materials, and teaching tools that had been cluttering the main school area for years. As James systematically removed the drywall panels section by section, he noticed something strange and completely unexpected. Behind the wall was a small enclosed room. According to the architectural plans he had reviewed before starting the project, this space should not exist. The original 1985 plans showed no indication of this area whatsoever. "Wait," he said to crew member Tom Harris, who had been working with him on various projects throughout Iowa for 8 years. "There's a hidden space here. It's not on any of the plans we have." When he fully removed the wall section, shining his flashlight into the darkness beyond, he saw a small storage room, approximately 5 feet wide, 6 feet long, completely sealed, no visible entrance from any direction. Inside, illuminated by his powerful LED work light, was a human skeleton still wearing a faded purple and white cheerleader uniform, surrounded by a deteriorated backpack that had clearly been there for many years. Next to the skeleton were 2006 dated chemistry and English textbooks, half-finished homework assignments, a faded school ID, all covered in thick dust. A silver bracelet on the left wrist was engraved with the initials MT. James's hands trembled. He had been in construction for years, but had never seen anything like this. "Call the police immediately. Don't touch anything. Everyone step back." The Cedar Rapids Police Department arrived within 12 minutes of the emergency call. 2 patrol cars came first, lights flashing in the afternoon sun, followed shortly by Detective Sarah Johnson's unmarked vehicle. Johnson was 45 years old and had 20 years of law enforcement experience throughout Iowa. She knew small towns well and understood how missing person cases devastated families and communities. Forensic teams carefully examined the sealed area with meticulous attention to detail. Crime scene technicians photographed every angle from multiple perspectives, measured distances with laser equipment, collected samples from every surface they could safely reach without disturbing the remains or contaminating potential evidence. The skeleton was in an upright position, leaning against the back wall. There was blunt force trauma to the back of the skull, multiple distinct impact points indicating repeated strikes with a heavy cylindrical object. Clothing remnants included a purple and white cheerleader uniform, faded denim jeans, and deteriorated sneakers. Next to the skeleton were cardboard boxes in various stages of decay, teaching materials, and education books. The silver bracelet on the left wrist was engraved with MT, frozen in time. "A student," Johnson said quietly, carefully kneeling beside the remains without touching anything, her experienced eyes taking in every detail of the scene. "She worked or studied here at this school. We need to check the entire history of the school and missing person cases from recent decades." School records were carefully reviewed by Detective Johnson and her team over the following hours. They examined employment files dating back to the school's opening, student enrollment records, class schedules. In police files, there was one significant missing person case from 2006. Melissa Turner, 16 years old, high school sophomore, cheerleader, disappeared under mysterious circumstances on October 12, 2006. Johnson opened the thick 2006 case file stored in department archives for 2 decades, the pages yellowed with age. Detective Michael Hayes had conducted the comprehensive original investigation at the time, interviewing dozens of students, teachers, and community members and organizing extensive searches. Hayes was now 66 years old and retired, living outside Cedar Rapids with his wife. But Johnson called him that evening to discuss case details. "Melissa Turner," Hayes said slowly, his voice heavy with the memory of a case that had never left him. "I never forgot that case. It bothered me for years after I retired. She was a wonderful young student. Everyone in the Cedar Rapids community loved her. Willing to help, cheerful, incredibly talented young woman who promised a bright future. She disappeared one October evening while studying in the library. We searched everywhere for months, systematically the entire town, the surrounding rural areas with search dogs and helicopters. We found no trace of her anywhere. It was like she vanished into thin air. Her car was in the school parking lot, her backpack was at the library table, her phone was charging, but she was gone." "Were there any suspicious individuals at the time of her disappearance?" Johnson asked carefully. Hayes paused thoughtfully. "The school assistant principal, Robert Mitchell. During our investigation, he seemed very concerned and cooperative, helped organize community search parties with volunteers, put up missing person posters, comforted her family. There were no red flags that made us suspicious of him at that time. He was a quiet man, had been working at the school for about 15 years at that point. Everyone in the community trusted him completely. Melissa's friends said good things about him. DNA comparison was immediately conducted at the State Crime Laboratory in Cedar Rapids using the most advanced forensic techniques. Melissa's mother, Patricia Turner, 63 years old, still lived in Cedar Rapids just 5 miles from the school in the same house where Melissa had grown up as a child. A reference DNA sample was carefully collected with a cheek swab. Patricia's hands were shaking as she gave the sample. She had been waiting for this moment for 19 years, but it was also what she feared most. A week later, the laboratory result came. Definite match. The skeleton sealed in the storage room was definitely Melissa Marie Turner. Melissa Marie Turner was born on March 15, 1990, in Iowa, to loving parents Patricia and David Turner. She grew up in Cedar Rapids, an only child in a close-knit family. From a very young age, she showed extraordinary interest in sports, especially cheerleading. She was an energetic, social child who was everyone's friend. When she started high school, she was a natural leader, captain of the cheerleading squad, honor student, volunteer. She dreamed of becoming a teacher. She started at Washington High School in 2004. Within 2 years, she became one of the school's most popular students. She was cheerleading team captain, student council member, active in honor society. Teachers described her as bright, compassionate, always willing to help others. Friends remembered her as the best friend, always making you laugh, always listening. In the fall of 2006, Melissa was a high school sophomore. She was 16 years old, making college plans, dreaming of a career in education. Her closest friends were Sarah Williams and Emily Chen. They did everything together: cheerleading practice, homework sessions, weekend shopping trips. Melissa was a happy, healthy teenager, excited about the future. But there was something critical that Melissa didn't know. The school assistant principal, Robert Mitchell, was developing an inappropriate obsession with her. Robert Mitchell was born in 1954 in Iowa to a middle-class suburban family. He had been divorced after a brief marriage in his early 40s, had no children, and lived alone in a small apartment with minimal social connections outside of work. In 1990, at age 36, he moved to Cedar Rapids and took a teaching position at Washington High School. He became assistant principal in 1995. He was a quiet, socially isolated man who mostly kept to himself and struggled to form meaningful connections with others. When Melissa started school in 2004, Robert noticed her. Young, beautiful, full of energy, radiating positive energy and genuine warmth to everyone she met. Robert would constantly find excuses to visit her classes, offer unwanted help, suggest mentorship sessions together, try to engage in increasingly personal conversations about her life and future plans. Melissa was always polite and professional, but clearly uncomfortable with the unwanted attention. In the summer of 2006, Robert crossed an inappropriate line. In September, after weeks of building up courage, he approached Melissa after school and asked her directly if she wanted to go to dinner at a nice restaurant outside Cedar Rapids. He framed it as a mentorship opportunity, but the romantic intent was obvious in his tone and body language. Melissa declined politely, but very firmly and directly. "Mr. Mitchell, that's not appropriate at all," she said clearly and firmly. "You're school administration, and you're much older than me. I value being a student here, but our relationship must remain strictly professional. If you continue, I'll have to report this to school administration." Robert was completely humiliated and emotionally crushed by the direct rejection in the middle of the school he worked at. The firm rejection transformed his inappropriate attraction into dangerous obsession, which quickly turned into bitter anger toward Melissa, who had humiliated him. 2 weeks later, Melissa planned to formally report the inappropriate advance to the school principal. Her appointment with the principal was scheduled for Friday, October 13th, 2006, but she never made it to that appointment. October 12th, 2006, Thursday evening. Melissa was organizing her class after cheerleading practice. She had stayed back to study for the next day's chemistry exam. School assistant principal Robert Mitchell was finishing paperwork in his office. The building was mostly empty. A few teachers remained, a few students in club meetings. At 7:42 p.m., Robert walked to Melissa's library table as she studied alone. "Melissa, I'm sorry to bother you while you're studying, but I need help moving some old textbooks from the boiler room storage. They're too heavy for me alone. You're young and strong. Can you help me? It'll only take 10 minutes. Melissa, always helpful to teachers, hesitated. She was uncomfortable with Robert's past behavior, but this was a public building. She was safe. It was just moving books. "Okay, Mr. Mitchell, let me just text my friends. I'll be a few more minutes." But her phone was on the charger. "I'll be right back. Just 5 minutes," she told herself. They walked together from the library down the corridor toward the storage area. Robert deliberately directed her to the isolated area behind the old boiler room. It was dark, isolated, cramped. Security cameras didn't cover this area. Exactly which books do I need to move? Melissa asked, looking nervously into the dimly lit area. Robert hesitated for one moment, his heart pounding in his chest, knowing this was the point of no return in his life. Then he made his terrible decision. Leaning against the wall was a heavy metal pipe, a remnant from the old heating system. Robert gripped it tightly and struck Melissa on the back of the head. Melissa fell to the concrete floor, shocked, blood flowing from her head. "Mr. Mitchell, why, what are you doing?" Robert, now in full panic mode, struck her again with the heavy pipe. Then again. Melissa stopped moving completely. Robert checked her pulse. Nothing. Melissa Turner was dead. She was 16 years old. Robert slowly backed away, breathing heavily, confronting the magnitude of what he had done to another human being. What had he done? But then cold reality came. If Melissa was gone, no one could know. Robert worked through the entire night, driven by fear of discovery. In the storage area was an unused space. Robert dragged Melissa's body there and positioned it upright against the wall. Then he built a wall to seal the area. He found drywall, screws, paint from the maintenance storage. He worked until morning. By 5:30 a.m., the wall looked original, like it had never been there. Then he returned to the library. He left everything as it was, backpack on the table, phone charging, homework half finished, as if Melissa had just gone to the bathroom. Robert went home, showered, tried to sleep, but he couldn't. Melissa's face was in his mind. Her why voice echoed. At 9 p.m., her closest friends Sarah and Emily had called Melissa. No answer. Initially, they weren't worried. Melissa sometimes went outside to call her family, but by midnight, when Melissa hadn't communicated, they were seriously worried. Early the next morning, they went to school. The school was locked, but the security guard let them in. They ran to the library. Melissa's purple backpack was still on the table. Her phone was on the charger. Chemistry book was open. Water bottle was on the table. But Melissa was gone. Sarah immediately called the police. Detective Hayes came. The school was comprehensively searched. Every room, every closet, every storage area, including where Robert had hidden Melissa. Everything appeared normal, but Melissa was gone. Hayes questioned Robert. "When did you last see Melissa last night?" "Around 8:30 in the evening," Robert said, appearing concerned. "She was studying in the library. I left around 9. Melissa was still working. She studies very hard for chemistry, often stays quite late. She's a great student." Comprehensive searches were organized. Police and volunteers scoured the town. Surrounding areas were searched. Her car was examined. Nothing suspicious. Phone records were checked. Normal communications. Weeks, months, years passed. No trace. Patricia and David Turner were devastated. There were no answers to help them understand what had happened to their daughter. David died in 2015 at age 59 from a heart attack. Many people believe from the stress of losing Melissa. Patricia never stopped hoping, organizing annual searches and candlelight vigils. Robert continued at the school. He taught for years, showed concern about Melissa's disappearance, organized memorial assemblies every October. He was supportive to Patricia. Patricia was grateful. In 2007, Robert established the Melissa Turner Memorial Scholarship. It was given each year to an outstanding student athlete. Robert would speak at ceremonies, shed tears, say Melissa's spirit lived on at the school. For 19 years, Robert worked at Washington High School. Every day, he passed Melissa's memorial photo in the lobby, her portrait smiling in her purple cheerleader uniform. Every year, he led the memorial sessions Patricia organized. Every year, on Melissa's birthday, he visited Patricia with flowers. Patricia told everyone how meaningful it was that someone who knew Melissa kept her memory alive. She didn't know that every time Robert said Melissa's name, he was standing in the building, where he had hidden her body. Until September 2025. James Mitchell broke through that wall during routine renovation, exposing the secret Robert had kept for 2 decades. Detective Johnson worked with genetic specialist Dr. Lisa Martinez. Detailed analysis found trace DNA on Melissa's bones. A profile was created and uploaded to databases. Dr. Martinez worked for 2 weeks. A match emerged: Robert Mitchell. On September 29, 2025, Johnson came to Robert's house with officers. Robert opened the door, looking exhausted. "Detective Johnson, I knew someone would come," he said. "I've been waiting for 19 years. Mr. Mitchell, you're under arrest for the murder of Melissa Turner." Robert nodded. "I know. You found her. I've carried this for 19 years. At the station," Robert confessed. "I lived with her ghost for 19 years, he told Johnson. "Every day at school, walking past her photo, teaching classes, visiting her mother, knowing she was sealed upstairs. I didn't plan it. I got angry in that moment. But that moment cost Melissa everything. When the news spread, Cedar Rapids was shocked. Robert Mitchell, the trusted assistant principal who had honored Melissa's memory for 19 years, was her killer." Patricia made a statement. "My daughter trusted Robert. For 19 years, I attended memorials he organized. I supported my daughter's murderer." The trial began in October 2025. Robert was charged with first-degree murder. The jury deliberated for 4 days. The verdict: guilty. The judge announced the sentence: life in prison with possibility of parole only after serving 25 years minimum. Robert was 71 years old. Washington High School was officially renamed Melissa Turner High School. A bronze plaque reads, "Melissa Marie Turner, 1990 to 2006. Beloved student, never forgotten." Cedar Rapids is healing. Melissa's legacy lives on. If this story affected you, please subscribe and like.